And so where I left off in the last lecture, it was kind of with the question of now what? Because where I left off in the last lecture, Rochambeau was up in Newport, Rhode Island. He had his army with him. His army was finally healthy after a long and very difficult sea voyage. Lafayette had become an important commander in his own right and now had his own troops that he was in charge of, and he had become very important to George Washington and also important for ensuring smooth relations between the French and the Americans during this alliance. And so the question is, okay, wonderful, finally the French have arrived, now what? And of course, on the tip of everyone's mind at this point is probably the Battle of Yorktown. But the Battle of Yorktown didn't just happen. In fact, Washington never planned to have a battle in Yorktown. Washington was really more interested in reobtaining New York. New York had been taken by the British, and Washington really wanted his combined forces with Rochambeau to go and get New York. Rochambeau is the French commander of his French forces, and Rochambeau feels that Virginia would be a better place for the combined armies to attack. But Washington has his heart set on New York, and as Rochambeau is subordinate to General Washington, he is supposed to follow General Washington's orders, Rochambeau is ready to accept the fact that they will be attacking New York. However, there are some very interesting developments which eventually change George Washington's mind, and they come in the form of a letter from Admiral de Grasse, who is a French admiral, and he has his fleet currently in the Caribbean. And I'm going to remind everyone at this point that the American Revolution, while we think of it as Americans as all about liberating America from Britain, for the French this was really a world war. And it wasn't quite a world war on the scale of the 7 Years' War, although some French generals thought it should be. But for the French, they were looking at this war as an opportunity not just to liberate America, which would be lovely, but also to maybe regain some of the things that they had lost to Britain in the earlier 7 Years' War. So the French are interested to see about not just freeing America, but also what other ways could they hurt Britain, or what other things could they reobtain that they lost in the last war. And that explains why you have Admiral de Grasse down in the West Indies. But Admiral de Grasse sends a letter to Rochambeau to say that he is not planning on being in the West Indies from the months of August through October 1781. And this is wonderful news. And now I'm going to pause for a moment to talk a little bit about Admiral de Grasse, who was a favorite of the Society of the Cincinnati. Admiral de Grasse was born into a very wealthy family, very wealthy noble family in France. He made a very good name for himself at sea. He was an excellent commander at sea. And we, of course, remember him for his wonderful actions at the Battle of Yorktown, which I'll talk about in just a minute. But Admiral de Grasse, unfortunately, after the Battle of Yorktown, returned to the West Indies and lost, in a rather embarrassing fashion, in the Saints, which is a part of the Caribbean. And he lost to Admiral Howe, the British commander. And for the French, de Grasse was not remembered so much for his wonderful victory at Yorktown, but more for his loss at the Saints, and this was an embarrassing loss for the French Navy. And unfortunately, many of the pictures that even we have of de Grasse show him surrendering to Lord Howe. But I think the more lasting influence, especially considering that we are American today, we are no longer under British authority, this is largely because of the Battle of Yorktown, and de Grasse was so important for the Battle of Yorktown. It would be very nice if de Grasse's memory could be recalibrated to be more about the Battle of Yorktown, at which he performed beautifully. And so I'm going to show a picture of him right here. This is de Grasse, and not a bad-looking man. And after the American Revolution was over and Rochambeau was presented to the king to receive a particular award for having fought so well in America, he refused to accept it unless de Grasse was there with him, because Rochambeau acknowledged how important de Grasse and the Navy was for this battle. So de Grasse, even though he might not be the best remembered person in France in the 18th century after the war is over, I'm trying to recalibrate that memory a little bit, because he really, with his letter to Rochambeau, he really starts the ball rolling towards what's going to be the most important battle of the American Revolution, Yorktown. So when Admiral de Grasse writes Rochambeau to say, just to let you know, my fleet is not going to be in the West Indies, it's going to be in the Chesapeake from the months of August through October in this year, 1781. Rochambeau is very excited, and he shows this letter to General Washington. And General Washington sees that, that they will have the advantage of having the French Navy on their side if they go down to Virginia. And so Washington finally says, okay, Rochambeau, we can go down to Virginia. And so on August 18th, I believe, they start to march south, yes. And so Washington and Rochambeau start their march down south.